Be Not Afraid. I'm so excited to talk to my guest today, Antoinette, because I've been wanting to talk to someone about this particular subject and especially what it has to do with our Utah culture. Um, Now, she's in Colorado, but she's my first detransitioner that is willing to do an interview. And I think it's so important that we have these conversations, that we hear her story, where she started from, and where she's at today. So, thank you so much for joining me, Antoinette.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here with you.
Um, I want to start just from the very beginning. So you have Antoinette Cruz, is that correct? Dela Cruz.
Yes.
And you have that you are professional. So, does that have to do with this, or does that have to do with something else in terms of, like, I know you told me before we started that you are here to be an agitator, and I think that that's
Right.
great, but are you here to be a professional agitator?
Well, I think it's because when this started kind of picking up some traction, I wanted to keep kind of like my personal life separate from my advocacy work. And so that's why I have the professional page. So all the people who want to be involved with that or who I may be interacting with, we have a professional place to be able to work from. But I feel that just naturally my presence agitates triggered people, so that's why I don't mind playing that part. It's necessary for growth.
Right, we need to stop being afraid of hard conversations. I know that a couple of years ago, I saw a ton of pushing for transgender acceptance and within kids, right? So within the K-12 space. And I said, well, I think it's important. I was in a community group and I said, I think it's important that these conversations go in the other direction as well. So you can show all you want to about transitioning, but I think that the detrans stories are important. And immediately, community groups started just saying, you're not welcome here because even talking about this is, quote, harmful.
Yeah.
So to me, the most harmful thing is telling a group of people who have realized that what they did is not what they who have regrets, that they don't have a right to have a voice.
And I agree. And I've experienced some of that that I call ignorance and also a lack of self-awareness. I've had people basically that this was my decision that I need to that I'm basically copying out or finding an excuse. And one thing that I told a gentleman was like, you have to remember that at the time I was experiencing mental illness. So that's why these professionals are in place. So the ones that will gatekeep in those situations so I don't cause harm myself. Being in a state of mental distress, you don't make the best decisions, and at those moments in my life, I was in mental distress. So I came to these people basically saying like, I need help, and this is what they offered me for help. So as I explained to that gentleman, it's like I did understand some of these things, but did I have the comprehension for it? No.
All right. So I want to start there. One of the things that I'm very concerned about and that I speak out a lot about is how mental health professionals are turning to social justice. And what is the link between transitioning and social justice? Do you feel that there's a link there? Are you frozen? Did you hear me?
So it's hard for me to speak. Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you
Go ahead.
let me
You're
see
you're
if
you're kind of frozen. Go ahead. I can hear you though.
is that okay, you can hear me. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, yes, I can hear
In
you.
my opinion, when people are advocating for this ideology, a misplacement of compassion, it's fighting for the wrong cause. When you're trying to fight for children to be mutilated or sterilized, I don't know any way, shape, or form how that could be considered justice. I understand that the intention may be to show compassion, but that's also where I say it's that over. You know, um, this this is a mental disorder, and no other mental disorders are linked to the gay, lesbian, and bisexual. We don't add any else, but this one was, and so I know a lot of people speak on this and they talk about, but for me, I don't feel the social justice has any real weight when they use that, just because this is damaging and causing harm to children, and even for women. This grows, this expands beyond just children. Like how I mentioned in one of my speeches, where it's like having a cut on your foot, and then you go and you stand in sewage water. You Initially, if it was to be taken care of, there would be spread of an infection, but it wasn't.
Mm.
And since this was caught early enough, now it's spreading, and now it's spreading to so many different avenues. Basically, this is like hero where it started, in my
So
opinion.
let's go there. Let's go with the ground zero for you. How did you get on the track to transition?
So, one of the things that I mention a lot is I feel that trauma has a lot to do with this process. I believe through trauma, you basically become disconnected from yourself. It's this thing called splitting. So, and mind you, a lot of this is going to be very overly simplified, 20 years to realize. So, there was work behind this. So, when you go through that trauma and there's a split, you basically are now disconnected from yourself. You grow up that way, like in my case, when the trauma caused the splitting in my case, I learned very young that as a little girl, I was one, not safe. I was not safe. And then two, I was not valued as a woman or as a little girl. So when I turned about 16, 17 years old, I just freshly started to realize that I'd be gay, I may be a lesbian. And I was kind of turned towards this after school. And so we I attended this. I met a lot of great like friends and everything, but we had a chaperone, and her name at the time, well, I don't know if I should share this, but she at the time she came into, and she had a flat chest. And as a little, like, as a young girl, I was just like, I know that I saw them there yesterday, but not there today. Like, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? And at that point in time, she explained to me what a binder was, and that the binder was meant to like basically put close to her chest, so it would give the appearance of a male chest. And so I then again, it just piqued my interest. And again, these are things she shouldn't have talked about. She should have got my parents first of all, so that was her overstep. So then she explains the whole process about, like, the binders, the testosterone, even packing, which
What state were you in?
I'm not sure if your audience knows what packing is. I'm in Colorado.
Is that where this all happened? And what was the club?
Yes, I'm
What
in
was
Colorado.
the youth group club? Does it have a name?
So the club didn't have a name per se. No, it didn't.
Okay,
Like, we met at this little
okay,
church, and everybody came from a different school, and we all met
okay,
there at school.
okay. So I just wondered if it was GSA or not. Gay Straight
Uh,
Alliance, or now
in
it's
my
called
town,
Gendered
those weren't
Sexualities.
very in my school, they weren't really common. If they were, you didn't really go. So this was a
Okay.
safer place to go and be gay, I guess.
Oh,
So
okay,
the
okay.
chaperone, after she explained after she explained everything to me and about again, this is just where I want to explain the inappropriate conversations that we're having, between myself and another adult. So the packing is basically where you give yourself the appearance of a bulge. So when people are looking at you and trying to clock you, as they say, like trying to figure out if you're a girl or a boy, that they'll usually look down into crotch. So if you don't have a bulge there, they could kind of tell that you're not a man. So again,
Wow,
16, 17 years old, and I'm learning about all this stuff.
wow.
Uh, she planted the seed in my brain, and I didn't really foresee how that could be by insurance. Like, you really had to go, uh, basically to the fringes to go find anyone who was willing to give you testosterone, to get on, to get letters, to get, the whole process. So I was just overwhelmed. I was like, forget it. Dealing with the trauma that I had, I was still dealing with my own personal life, and I was struggling with alcoholism even at the age of 17. And
Wow.
so at this point in time, I'd say about 20 to 21 years old. And at that point in time, I started to socially transition. I started to ask people to start calling me Evan. I started to look how to purchase binders, and trying to take the whole route to go that way. So I finally found a doctor, and this person I will say by name. Her name is Dr. Rachel St. Clair, and she is a trans woman herself. When I found her, and I did know that she was trans, that's why I picked her. I was hoping it would be a more streamlined process. I was trying to rush this process because I thought it would save my life. I struggled a lot with suicide. I struggled a lot with so when I went to go see her, I lied about how that I did therapy for a year. I lied that I was living as a man for 6 months, and I wasn't doing that. Um,
And there was no
and
way to
that
research it.
day, that session, well,
Wow.
I'm assuming that she could have pulled records. She could have vetted. There were still medical records back then. There were still things that she could have done more of to vet to see if I was being truthful and honest about what I was doing, or even just bring in the paperwork, you from the therapist that I was seeing,
Right.
but none of that was asked. Um, she that same wrote my letter for HR. When I received the letter, I still wasn't sure about it. And so it took almost 2 years of, basically fighting and battling with myself still, and then revisiting the whole thing of, like, maybe this is why I'm not happy, because I was always meant to be this boy, because I was a gender nonconforming girl. I was a tomboy. Um, my life wasn't making sense, so maybe it's because I was not truly who I was. And I was
Can I
obsessed with, like,
ask
YouTube
you
at the time. Sure,
ah, can I ask you, is there sexual abuse in your past?
absolutely. Yes, I was, molested. I hate to say it's typical, but, I was molested by my uncle for probably from the 0 to from when I could remember, let's put it that way, from when I could remember until about I was 11 or 12. And, I did tell my mom, and my mom would take us to the police station and everything, and they would even have the little bear out and tell me, "Well, where were you being touched?" And I would show where I was being touched. And I remember when I stopped talking about it was, when we went to court, because my mom went to court several times to try to get custody, because we experienced, I would even say, abuse that really, was on the edge of torture from my father. And so, when we got into the truck after he won, and I don't know how he consistently won those cases against my mom despite all the evidence. And my grandmother documented everything, pictures, dates, times, everything. But when I got into the truck with him, he told me, he goes, "So your uncle touched you?" And I just said, "Yes, sir." And he just, like, he hit me, and then he just told me, he goes, "It's your fault." He goes, "What do you expect?" He goes, "I told you not to sit on his lap." So for years, I thought it was my fault why it happened to me, and I knew my other cousins were going through it. I knew my sister went through it, and so I also took responsibility for that. It was my fault.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was
Wow, no wonder you
he was a real stand-up guy.
okay.
Yeah, that's where I was learning, like, I wasn't safe or valued as a little girl. My father really made that very known. He disrespected us constantly. He horrible names. Uh, he would tell us how useless and base that we were, and he even planted a seed in my brain all the time where he'd be like, he goes, "You're gonna have such a problem in the world with your disposition." And I had no idea what that meant as a kid, but it stuck with me all the way even to this day, not knowing that was really just his projection.
Wow.
So a lot of people who go through transitioning, they experience this, especially little girls, especially women who decide to transition.
Were
It's a
are the
very
boys
similar.
in your family? Do you have brothers in your family so that, like, you could look at them and go, they treated differently or anything?
No, it was just my sister and myself.
Okay. So in your head, you could kind of fantasize that if I wasn't me, I could be maybe my life would be different kind of thing.
Well, I felt like men didn't attack other men the way that men attack
Okay.
women. So that's where I
Okay.
was seeing where it was almost like hiding in plain sight from the threat. To me, men were threats, men were dangerous, were scary. So, but if I look like them, if I sounded like them, I'm less likely to be harmed by them.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's continue on. So somehow your dad gets custody, and so your whole time growing up in his house, you're feeling like completely unsafe. So you're 20, in your
Oh,
20s.
completely. Well, and I could like go more into like the abuse, a little bit later, because it was a lot.
Yeah.
But but when we fast forward to 20, and or actually 22, 23 at this time, because that's where I sat on the letter. So I didn't cash it in. Like I was still had doubts. I was still unsure about it. Even though I got it, I was still unsure. And the only reason why it even came up again was because I was cleaning my room and I was happening to go through old documents I had, and I was seeing what I had to throw away, and I happened to come across her letter for T. And that when I was like, maybe it's a sign from the universe or something like that. And so that's where I looked around. I found a doctor in Colorado Springs because again, this wasn't prevalent how as it is now. Excuse me. So there was a doctor in Colorado Springs who was willing to give me the testosterone, but when I gave it, he was like, "Well, there's a problem with this letter." He said that it's old. He goes, "We need something that's within a year. This is like 2 years old." He goes, "I can't use this." And I was like, "Okay, just hold on a second." So I called Dr. Rachel St. Clair and I told her, "Hey, I'm so sorry. Like, basically, expensive. I haven't been able to cash in on the letter. Could you just, write me up another one with the to this doctor so I can start on testosterone?" Without hesitation, she didn't even ask why. Like, why did it take you so long? Why didn't you cash it in? There was none of those questions. She just said, "No problem. I'll send you either via email me or to him." I can't remember, but he did. And he had it. I drove up to Colorado Springs and he walked me through my first shot and explained for me how to do it. And then when I went back to Pueblo, my prescription is ready and I gave myself my first shot.
Wow. So there was no, because originally, what I understand about transitioning is that originally, I think it was in Sweden, the original model, it takes 7 years of extreme therapy and living as the opposite sex before you are given medication to start changing. And I know that changed for a while, but then now they're changing it back, because it has caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. But you had no counselor walking you through, "This is what it means for your life."
No, pretty this whole thing was me guiding it, which is really alarming. But at the time when I researched it, for Colorado, is you had to be in therapy for a whole entire year for that specific topic. For any other therapy, just for that topic. Once you did that, you were supposed to get a letter from that person to be able to go see Dr. Rachel St. Clair, which was a step that was skipped. And then you have 6 months. Everyone was using your pronouns, they're using
And when
your
did you
new
start this?
name,
Because you
you're wearing the binder.
Okay, okay.
Sorry.
You started this how long ago? How many years ago did you start the process?
So this was near 20 years ago. I'd want to say it was 2003 or 2007 when I started.
Okay, so well before it became
And
the
that's what kind of further pushed. Yes. And that's why I push for this, where I'm like, this was even hard back then, and it took me 2 decades to figure it out. Like, and even more
Right.
so, I was closer to an adult, and I wasn't a child, and it
Right.
came to this point.
Right, and now it's on so many papers when you're filling out an application for your student in school, what do they identify as? And there are teachers who will say, they'll slip and say, "Oh, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to ask them their pronouns." And they're sowing those seeds earlier and earlier.
Right.
So you had
Which
said
is the reason why we're
that
speaking up.
right. You had said that you started by or you said you watched a lot of YouTube. Can you go into that for me?
Yeah, so, back in my time, I hate saying it that way, but back in my time, all that we really had was YouTube, other than the weird stuff that you may find on the internet. But I had to really go searching for people. I came across, like, there was this one, trans man that, like, really old at the time, like, he was probably, like, 67, 70 years old and transitioned later in his life, and he was isolated. And then I, came across also Buck Angel, which is, crazy because, he actually invited me to the podcast, eventually, to be able to speak on that. So, it's a that's a
That's a big one.
circle one. Yeah, so I found folks like that, and there was some people, like, there's this one, person in Nebraska, who transitioned, and I saw for the first time where she cut off her breasts, for that vasectomy. And that was the first time I was able to see what a chest could potentially look like, and I started to obsess about trying to look like this man, or what I would like as a man. Uh, and mainly it was just like looking at different types of armor, basically. Armor where I could hide, and I was about that. At the time I didn't know that, but again, a lot of things may seem oversimplified, but it's just I've had a lot of time to think about it.
Um, so you watched those 2 people. Did you find a community there? Or I know, there's a certain internet group. I can't There's obviously Reddit, but there's one that specifically pulls in, like, transitioning, and I've listened to I don't know if you know who Benjamin Boyce is? Benjamin Boyce, and he does the Voice of Reason.
Sorry.
'Kay,
Oh,
I'm
forgive me.
gonna I'm gonna send you over to him and his wife, Leslie. I'm gonna connect you with them later. But, he does a lot of detransitioning, and trans, and so I've listened to many, many, probably over 100 of the videos there. And I know that there's groups that will pull kids in, young people, and then it'll start to tell them things like, "Oh, you look so good as the opposite gender." Now this,
Right.
I recently learned because of, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, the the boyfriend of the shooter,
Right.
he called himself a fisher. I don't know if you've heard of that term before, a fisher?
Was it just a new age term for groomer?
Yeah. Yeah. So it is yeah. Um, did you ever run into people who are like that?
So I would say where I'm able to see the difference, and I'm kind of grateful for that experience because I could tell you how horrible it has become. There weren't groups for me. There weren't
Okay.
people trying to, pull me in that way. Even with the chaperone, I feel that it was her best intentions, but she wasn't trying to. I think she made poor decisions, as a human being. But see nowadays is I see where it's become predatory, and that terrifies me because this didn't start off that way, and it become predatory. Now they're seeking out children. Now they're taking on, of abusive behavior. Like, for example, not only isolating the child from their family, but they also remove any resources or any difference of opinion, anything that could change their mind, anything that could have them thinking differently. They're they right away basically teach these kids to their parents. They weaponize the disconnection that's within themselves and their. And I hate to say, at times where when families were close, like we don't have those kind of issues, and I hate to say where I'm just like, you know, it's it's hard when your house keeps getting broken into at night because someone leaves a window open, but there's a window open. There's a way the thief is coming into your house, and usually that's by disconnection. If families were having more of those discussions of having emotionally safe spaces, having um, you know, basically having that connection that is solid, it's harder for a groomer to come and be able to wedge your way between you and your child because the kid is first going to know something's off and something's wrong, and the first person they're going to want to tell is their parent. You know what I mean? So that's where I'm saying, like, this is basically not the cause, but a symptom of what's going. And I wish people would pay more attention to mental wellness. And it's not just for the individual who's going through the transition, it's the mental wellness of the whole family unit. It's dealing with emotions, it's having emotional regulation, it's having emotional maturity, it's having responsibility, accountability, repair. It's showing your children that these are safe spaces to be. And when they don't feel safe, even in the slightest bit, that's a window open in your house.
So I have a question about that
And that's
because
that's what's scary.
what
Yes.
scares me is that a lot of the mental health help pushes into that. So when people are a lot of times a parent will be like, I just need help. Can somebody help me here? And they send them to a therapist, and the therapist, like in Utah, they have to be affirming. So
Yeah.
what first off, how can and then we have I don't know if you know who Alvin Louis is, but we all have the same dictionary, but not the same definition. So we will say something like mental wellness and we mean one thing. And, mental wellness at school means affirming. Mental wellness at
Right.
school means centering around some at the expense of others. And that highest centering around is supposed to be LGBTQIA plus, right? And specifically the trans area of things. Does-
And
does-
forgive me, could you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I'm saying so when we say wellness, when we talk about wellness and trusting and trying to create that, how do we create wellness in the family and at what point? Well, first, how do we create wellness in the family? What would be your opinion?
Sure.
How can we keep our
And
kids safe?
you got it. And forgive me if I have to ask you to repeat things sometimes. Sometimes with my brain, it'll get distracted. I forget what again,
You're
because it
fine.
could be
Don't
possibly
worry.
being neurodiverse, which is another target for these folks. So I can empathize. I actually went through therapy, and even though
Pause
it
for a
did
second
bring me
there.
to a lot of.
Sorry, I need to repeat that again. She said being neurodiverse is a target for these folks. You need to listen to that. I had somebody choose to say that my child was neurodiverse. He's not. He's an only child. But people feel that they're looking for those things. They're looking for whatever flag they can use to tag your child. Go ahead, keep going.
So uh sorry, I forgot what I was talking about.
You were
The
talking.
therapy.
Okay.
So
Mhm.
I went to therapy on my own, and I could empathize with the faultiness, and because even though they directed me to a lot of great books, I would hyperfixate on my mental health, and so I would go do all the research, and I would go try to figure out what was going on within myself. And so when I would show up to the next session, I would start talking to them about all the things that I was realizing. and the epiphanies I was having and how that could correlate to different things. And I would see them writing stuff down as they should be, but they would then be like, "Hey, can you please repeat that last part?" And I'd be like, "Sure." And so I'd repeat it. I was like, "What for?" And they're like, "Well, that's just really good. I could like use that." And I I would get frustrated because I'm like, "I'm here for your help. Like, I'm not here to help you be a better therapist. I'm here for you to give me therapy." And so at times and this is where I say with parents, there's material out there. There's there's things out there that you could go and read to figure out first about yourself. Before you even start trying to focus on your kid, it starts with you as the adults, as the people, because whatever you don't deal with, you pass down to your kids. They will deal with what you don't. So deal with yourself first. Find out like where is my communication lacking? Where is my emotional regulation not at point? Am I communicating in healthy ways? Am I creating safe spaces for things? When you start to do those things and heal the things that are within yourself, it has no choice but to show in your environment. So even if therapists, because even in Colorado, therapists are not allowed to give the difference of opinion because of the laws that just recently passed, where you can't dead name and you can't misgender anybody. So a lot of therapists are very much hands off right now because they could, they could have jail time. There's a lot of things that they could face for just trying to help a kid. So I say at this point in time, it's going to have to be the parents taking control of it themselves. Go read a book. The body keeps score. What are the other ones I have? I have toxic parenting. I have the six pillars to self-esteem. There are all these books that you can read to find where are the holes within my own and let me focus there. And then once I have that healed, I'll know exactly how to build a safe environment. I'll know exactly how to my kid, because the kid will be able to feel the safety. They'll feel it. And that's usually what kids first thing that we pick up on in unsafe environments is energy, tone. Um, we learn how to read a room real quick. You know what I mean? So that's why I say it's like up on energy, in other words. So let it start with you. Read a book, figure out how to be a healthy person, apply those dynamics into your family and strengthen your family unit,
And what I always tell
in my
people is
opinion.
yes, what I always tell people is to be your child's one person. Be the person that they know they can come in and tell you anything from a funny joke to whether what's going on in school with teachers to whether or not they're being bullied. You've got to
Right.
be their bestie. So,
Yes.
okay. So, where did you become an advocate? Where did things switch for you where you first realized this isn't for you? How did that happen?
So before even the advocacy, exactly
Mhm.
what you just talked about, I over since 2015 is when I put real effort, real intention into becoming mentally and emotionally. So I had to realize where all my toxicity was, where because it was impossible to come from the ended and not have filth on me. So basically, since 2015, I've been taking spiritual and mental showers, trying to cleanse and clean away all that uh, didn't align with me anymore, or were lies that were told to me. Like I wasn't enough. Um, I wasn't, I wasn't loved. I wasn't able to be loved. Uh, all the things that basically caused the disconnection in the first place. So last year, almost around this time, actually, last year is when I realized that even through the transition, times or privately, in public, very, very often, but privately, I would still put on makeup. And I would notice about how much happier I felt putting on makeup and how I thought I looked pretty, and then I would get disgusted with myself where I'm like, no, I'm a man. Like that's who I am now. Like, and it was this battle within, but it gave way. When I when I was in one of my healing sessions, uh, and I realized that I wasn't Evan, and I never was, and I never wanted to be Evan. Evan was basically my armor, and I realized that I couldn't be identifying with my pain as I was, and it wasn't, I wouldn't be able to live and survive if I stood where I was, because I was very suicidal. Like how you've seen in my video, that's that caught fire that I've that for supporting Protect Kids Colorado. Um, I struggled with even just wanting to wake up in the morning, and I would almost hope the universe would just do it for me so I wouldn't have to. But there were times where I prepared for it or I attempted it, and so it was coming to a point, where this was I had to do something or I wasn't going to survive. So I didn't realize that process. I eventually learned to be gentle and compassionate with my, and when I was able to create that safety within my own being, it allowed me to be honest with myself. To doing that, I was very critical and very harsh and very cruel to myself. So within my own spaces, how can I be vulnerable with myself when myself would be the first one to tear me apart? So I didn't even feel safe in my own body. I used to tell the therapist, I feel like I'm chained to a bear, and basically I'm at its mercy with whatever how it feels, and I'm subjected to whatever it wants to do to me, not knowing that that bear was actually cries for help. You know what I mean? So once once action happened and I realized that this was a mistake, I the first thing I did was I went to go look at the opposite, the other side, because I avoided that. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know. I just in my mind already they were the enemy. They didn't understand. They just didn't want me happy. They were bigots. You name it. I was saying it, but really what it was is I was terrified to hear something that would be truthful and something that would tell me that I made a mistake. Especially after everything I did to myself. But I went and I looked. And when I went, I found that there was this guy, and his name is just as cheap as it sounds, John Money. And he was one of the main people that pushed for research, as he called it, research about two twins. And basically, one boy got castrated. They they made that little boy without telling him that they forced him into being a girl. And John Money had this theory, and literally just a theory, that gender was a social construct. And when this family met this tragedy, they somehow got connected to this sicko. Um, so for him, it was a perfect experiment. Now he has two twin boys. So now he has a control. Now he has the one he could actually say this theory could possibly work. So these boys were basically the kid's name was Bruce, and they made him. He lived up till like as a woman up to I think about 14 or 15 years old, and things were not syncing up for him. He wanted to pee when he stood up. He didn't want to play with the girls. There was a lot of internal about him that was like a little boy, but he didn't know that. During this time, while those boys are with John Money, it's known he's taking photographs of them. Uh, he was having them take poses. Adults would take with one another to explain to them how men and women have intercourse. He had, like I said, pictures. These such distress going to see this guy. Eventually, Brenda was just like, enough, go. I don't want to be there. The mom agreed and said, I'm not going to have you go back to him, but I need to tell you something. And then she confessed to the two boys what happened. So the brother, who was the control and entire thing, he eventually got heroin, and I believe he overdosed and killed himself. Bruce then, or Brenda, then became John, Oprah, to try to warn and speak, and no one listened to him at all, because at this point in time, John Money already pushed so much vigilant research out there that's the basis of this gender ideology you see before you today, all based on false research. And honestly, the kind of science you could think of is based off the one study, and it had 100% death rate for two people because John later killed himself. So this is
Yeah.
the research that they're basing it off of, and that's why I say kids are not gonna survive this. And the people who say that they're happy, I definitely call bullcrap on it. You're not happy, you're delusional at this time because you think this is what will make you happy. You think this is what will make you whole, but it's not real science. This is not how you treat this disorder.
Well, I wonder about the happiness if your happiness literally relies on everybody else bowing to you, doing exactly what you want, and if they don't, you can, get them fired or anything else. So, that doesn't seem like a happy person to me to care so
No, and
much about what other people think. Go ahead.
and I even push that as further. I think people when they realize that the commonality, and just based off of my own experience and just my own weird research, is that people are usually dealing with abandonment issues and rejection issues.
Yeah.
Those are very deep-seated things, and they will express themselves in different ways. So even if you transition, you're only acting out the pain that needs to be healed. When you go out there as something that you're not, people are going to tell you you're not that thing, rejection. People who are not going to be there for you, abandonment. So now you're fulfilling all things. People don't even realize the conversation they're having with themselves. The universe, in my opinion, I know people you want to call it, I don't believe that it has the ability to talk like you and I are talking. So it brings situation, it brings people to talk to you, to tell you what's hurt, what's broke, but only if you know how to cue in on your own conversation of what you're telling yourself.
So, is mental health kind of your spirituality, or have you found some sort of a spirituality, or like, is there a cultural spirituality that you use to kind of guide you?
I'm honestly, I'm probably agnostic at best, but I'm mainly atheist, and I know sometimes that crushes my mom because my mom is Christian, and so is my father, my stepdad. That's who I call like my dad. The real father I don't speak with, but for those two, they even have a beautiful Christian coffee shop, and I love them for it. Um, but it's hard for me because I feel like I have a lot of religious trauma, and I have my own battle with Christianity uh, that
Mhm.
makes it hard uh, to give in to that. But at the same time, I know that for a lot of people, it means different things. So even with my parents, they pray over me, and I'm okay with that. I love that. It's good energy. To me, it's still energy. It's the intention of goodwill. It's the intention of health, of us, and it's the intention of love. And not offended by it. Anytime anyone's like, "Can I pray for you?" I'm like, please. I love that. Thank you. Um, so I wouldn't say I'm spiritual, so to speak. Um, but reality and pain have been some of my best teachers. So that's where I just stay for right now.
And are you, do you identify as gay today, or no? Or
Yes, I'm still living.
you
Um,
what'd you say?
that's something. Oh, I was like, I'm still a lesbian. Yes.
Okay,
Um,
sorry. Sorry, that's what I meant. That's a terrible moment, sorry.
no, no,
That's
no,
my
you're good. No, no,
Okay.
not at all. And please know, ask me anything. I know that sometimes I used to tell when I was still very much in the ideology is I still try to practice uh, patience, where I would tell the trans people, and I would tell them, be like, if you're the worst experience as the first person they meet, they're gonna hate you. And I was like, so try to be compassionate, try to understand that most people like you, so you're gonna be the first one. So be gentle, explain things. But when you're not, it's hard to do those things.
Right. And also in an ideology I mean, a lot of people believe that if you don't affirm them, you're literally causing them harm, literally causing them damage, that you're their enemy. And there's a big difference between saying, I'm not going to sacrifice what I believe to make you feel good, but that doesn't mean I hate you, you know? Like there's a difference between
Right.
being able to just say, I respect you as a human being, but you don't get to define what respect means. for me. And I find
Right.
that a lot. Like, I'll go to certain places and people will be like, "Oh, she's so nice," and I'm like, "And if you read my Twitter, you might not you might not think so, even though I am." But if you are
Yep.
in an ideology that believes that to disagree is hatred, then we have an issue. I
Right.
want to
But
talk about.
I even
Oh,
told
go
my
ahead.
mom today, I was like, even Jesus like toppled tables and was whipping temples. So there's a balance. There's a balance.
Yeah. Yes, there absolutely is. And if you don't stand up for what you believe to be right, eventually you won't believe it anymore. I think that that happens a lot with the
Right.
culture of kindness. People use kindness to get you to self censor, to not say anything. And then what happens, and that's where I'd like to go, is what did you do physically? And what repercussions do you still have from it?
Sure. So
Okay.
physically I removed my breasts. Is that what we're talking about, correct? Like the surgeries?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I got the double mastectomy. I had my hysterectomy. That was the first thing that went because as a reminding me as a woman is when I would have my period. So it was also due to even if you gave yourself too much testosterone or too little, your period will come back. So that was something that I wanted to disconnect from was that femininity. So I went for that. The guy who did it is a real sketchy dude, but at the time, worked with whoever you did. Like it's not like today where you could just say, "Hey, I feel like I'm a boy," and they'd be like, "Great, here's your testosterone. We have all these line of doctors that are willing to mutilate you." So I got with that guy. This is where another part of where you fall through the cracks, sort of thing. When I went there, I basically told them I was with Blue Cross Blue Shield at this time, and they didn't have any cares whatsoever. So I basically told the nurse my story, and then I told her I was just like, I need to get these out. If I don't get them out, like I'm going to kill myself, basically. And so, even though I appreciate her compassion, I would have rather the ethics. At that point in time, she told me she's like, so basically, we have to find something. We have to find something wrong. And I was like, yes, to find something wrong. And she was like, okay, no problem. And basically went through, looked, she goes, do you see that? Do you see that? She goes, I see 3 fibroid tumors. She's like, that's more than enough to get those removed. And I was like, are you serious? And she's like, yes. She goes, I'll do the paperwork now. So I was able to, and mind you, that's something that could be handled. All women could relate that we do get fibroid tumors. We get those things
Right,
on our ovaries, and those things can be removed. The ovary doesn't have to be removed, but that's what they
right.
did. So I went to this doctor again, sketchy dude. On the day of, he basically perfed my bowel. Um, we didn't know about it for 9 days. So 9 days, I was sitting in excruciating pain. Basically, the excrement was going out into my abdominal cavity because they removed my ovaries or my cervix. It just burned through that because it's just acidic and it's just waste, and it caused an abscess on a cuff. There was so much weird stuff going on with my body, like gas was coming out of my vagina, which is not. I have no idea what that's about. And the pain, I could handle pain, but the pain was excruciating. I went to the hospital after about 9 days of dealing with this, and the nurse told me if you would have waited just a day longer, all we could do was make you comfortable because you're going septic. They got a hold of the doctor eventually. There was another doctor that got involved to correct his mistake. I carried ileostomy back for 4 months, and that was something that was a deep-seated fear of mine. There it was in my body. I died on the table the first time that because I was under the anesthesia for too long. As I'm coming out, I could hear them saying she already died, and they're like, she's not breathing on her own. She is letting the machine breathe for her. And as they see me coming through, she's like, honey, you need to let the machine breathe for you. You're not breathing on your own. And I had to have this thing that felt like a leaf blower on my face for hours until my lungs were able to function on their own. Once it came time for corrective surgery, and actually this was before the corrective surgery. Forgive me. This is why I had that bag on because they had to cut me completely open through my. So then they tore all the things that keep my guts together, opened it up so they could
And you were
basically take
how old?
everything out, clean it. I was
How
probably
old were you?
24. I was probably like
Okay,
24, 25. Uh,
just a
yeah,
baby. Okay.
forgive me, like 25, 26. I would say 25, 26. Still a young woman. Um, so after they stapled me up, the idiot doctor doctor messed up the first time. He took us too early. So the minute I got into my car, I sound and I just felt a rip. And it basically caused two separate went straight back to the and and I mean gaping holes. And we had to get packing tape and had to pack that in there and heal it from the inside out. On top of that, the ileostomy bag, we weren't educated very well about it. I didn't know there was bile that was leaking onto my skin, and the bile that comes from there is the same. If you do not remove all of it, the way the color is not even showing, it's eating actively at your skin. So I
Oh
had
my
just
gosh.
these, yeah, it was just like acid around that whole entire stoma. And it was just the worst experience, not to mention the trauma, the situational depression, it digging up the issues I already had, but then had to face more of, but not prepared with it. So it just spiraled me even deeper into this pit. And so after that was done, got the bag removed, and everything was like starting to finally heal, I got the breast removed. And the part with that was that they told me the only thing you have to worry about is if we remove those little gauzes and your nipple, that means that your nipples didn't take. So the thing about nipple, I'm a Hispanic woman, so our areolas are significantly different than smaller areolas, and men have definitely smaller, more oval like areolas, and you're trying to create this image. You're trying to fit it. So have my natural areolas uh, on my body with no breast tissue. It was horrible. So I opted in to have them cut off, to be reshaped, and then to be put back onto my body in designated spots. So that means I'd lose all sensation. I would never be able to feel my nipples again. I have numbness along my chest that would probably never go. Did. So I have tons of places where the only way I could tell I'm feeling it is because my lungs and on my lungs and my chest what could tell me, but I can't feel my skin. So that was the last surgery that I had. After and then forgive me. So when they did take off things, guess what color they were? They're black. So even more so, like just torn down by this whole process. But thankfully, my skin somehow was able to take and say, talk to me about where I could go get them tattooed, and it was
Wow.
a horrible process for a body that had nothing wrong with it.
That's pretty powerful. A body that
And
had
then
nothing wrong with it.
right,
Go ahead.
and I didn't
Yeah,
and I didn't even mention to you about the advocacy work and about how I even got into it.
right,
And this was through a group that's on Facebook, and it's called Detransitioners. And I was on there trying to meet with other people just so I didn't feel alone in the process. And I met this young woman, and her name was Jess, and she put out basically call to action saying, "Hey, there's this group that's trying to bill from being passed." She was like, "I'm not really in a place to speak. Would anybody be willing to do it?" And like how I told you, I naturally agitate people, so I was like, "This is perfect for me." And so I reached out, and the person I was able to talk to was Dr. Bowman, but he introduced me to Dr. Travis Morrell, who's become like a brother to me. And he's one of the people that's supporting Protect Kids Colorado. He basically took me under his wing. He made sure that I knew what I was doing, but I had my own free choice. But he just made sure that I was protected, that I was seen, and that I had a safe space to be able to share my story. And ever since meeting him, and then Aaron Lee, uh, who's the one who's running this campaign to try to get preventing children from having sex change surgeries under 18,
right.
so minors are not allowed to opt in for this thing. She's the one that's running this, and these two have been such huge
And you're doing a
inspirations to me
fundraiser
and
for
have
this right now,
basically
right?
brought me into this
And you're doing a
right
fundraiser
now. And
for
we're
this
in a
right
time
now, right?
constraint.
Okay,
Yes,
tell me,
yes.
give us that information. What is that information? And
This
then I'll
is
I'll put it in this thread. Go ahead.
thank you. So you can look at Protect Kids Colorado. You could also look at my X profile, and I have the place where you could go and donate. But right now, we need donations and signatures. Right now, I think our goal is for $250,000. I feel like we're up at about 50. I want to say it's about 50,000 right now. We need the signatures, and what this will do, allow us to put an initiative on the 2026 to to and there's three things for this that we're focusing on for right now is that children who are minors under 18 are not allowed to have these surgeries.
What do they tell you when you have these surgeries? Like, what is the do these kids know going into it the repercussions? Do you know your surgery could be botched, your stomach can explode, and you can go septic? Is any of that told to the kids?
So I don't know what's being told to other people in my situation, kind of like the thing you and I talked about. Did I about it? Yes. Did I have the comprehension for it? Absolutely. Not in the state of mind that I was in. The doctor who botched my surgery and perfed my bowel, he told me there's a 1% chance that I will perf the bowel and that there will be complications. And I was like, 1% chance, that's not going to happen to me. So these things are touched upon. But to say that someone who's in mental distress or who's not mentally well comprehend these risks, absolutely not. I'm in desperation, and it's like when desperation meets compassion, and it's not a beautiful mix.
Did you do this by yourself? Or did you have, like did you have a friend or a partner who was there with you when you were going through all of this? Through the surgeries?
Um, so my mom was there to help like during some of the recoveries, but I feel it's very hard for her because of the obvious. Like knew she knew this wasn't real. I didn't, and but she didn't want to push me because I was already a sad
You were
suicidal
fragile.
child. Parent would just push someone. Right, exactly. The partner I was with, Phil, she had a of her own of wanting to be a straight woman without being a. I feel like she was more supportive for herself than my wellness, but she was there for a lot of it, and she did do a lot of things that I was grateful for to like helping me. Like she dealt with like my ileostomy bag because I couldn't even look at it without just even now, even thinking about it now, it still messes with me. Uh,
Okay.
so sorry,
You're okay.
but
I'm I'm
I had
I'm
people
holding it
who
back
were
too.
for the most part. Thank you. I did have support, but I just supported me because I was already on the edge, or they had their own motive. We didn't know how serious.
Did you ever get to a place mentally where you made people like you were I, I'm going to be blunt here, but there are people who will say if you don't support me, you don't love me, I'm cutting you off. Were you ever in that place?
Yes, yes. Um, when I surrounded myself with all that material, it made me really feel that if your parent couldn't just want to see you happy and not kill yourself, that they never loved you and they don't care about you and that they're an enemy to you now because all they want to do is keep you confined to things they understand rather than you be who you're supposed to be. So I punished my parents for that. Um,
That's where I think a lot of I mean, that's why I wanted to have this conversation because the people I know who are going through something similar, even if it's just the social transition, they're kind of held hostage in their own homes. The kids
right,
have been taught that if you don't support us 100%, if you don't, we then you don't love us and then we shouldn't exist and it's
right.
really
And
sad.
I think what really during this whole time that I've been with like Travis and Aaron and I've been like meeting and what really made me want to reach out to my parents other than what was going on was that I was listening to other parents and I was listening to their anguish of being away from their kids and how they just truly just wanted them to be happy and whole and they just wanted them to be safe and they just want to protect them. and that's all they wanted to do. That's it. And even if it wasn't done perfectly, it was with love. And it made me realize, like, because I punished my parents. I stopped talking to them for 10 years. For 10, and my mom, like, she would try. I remember, she would send me like birthday wishes, and I would just be like, "You don't even love me," like cruel and like harsh to her. And like we talk about this now, and I just apologized to her, and I just told her I understand like what I was going through, and I didn't understand that you were just trying to like reach out to me. You're just trying to help me. And I was like, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry for the pain that I caused you. But it robbed us of a lot of time. So one thing that I tell parents that I feel, because you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know how serious this was. She attempted when I was younger, because she knew the stuff, me and my sister, she tried to put us into like therapy, but we didn't know this was going to be part of it. We didn't know that a disconnection could lead to this sort of thing. So, uh, what I've learned over the years is there's this thing called motivational interviewing. And I think that would be a game changer for parents, for their children. Changes your approach, because these kids are already battle with you. They already perceive you as the enemy because they've been told you are. That if you don't love them, you're not. If you don't affirm them, you don't love them, as you said, perfectly said. So they're waiting for it. They're waiting to fight you. They're waiting for that to be part of their struggle. This is that confabulation. That's the thing I'm talking about. And so what I tell the parents to do is to motivational interviewing. It's asking questions with curiosity, no judgment, and love. It's creating that safe space. So even if they're like, "Hey, I feel like well, can you tell me more about that? Like, why do you you're this person? How do you feel this will make your life better? How do you think it'll change than what it is now? For more support to you now." It's these different kinds of questions that are coming from a place of like I said, love and curiosity and no judgment. That disarms the ideology, because this is a cult. So it's just like of any other cult that's out there. You have to disarm the lie, and they've been already told that you're an enemy. So don't make it true. Come from a place of compassion, of love, of curiosity, judgment, despite how you feel about it. Just listen to them, because eventually, as they start to go through, they're going to start answering their own questions. Because if they're like, well, I feel disconnected, or I don't feel I'm safe as a girl, there it is. Be like, okay, well, tell me why you're safe as a little girl. And then you start to dig, you allow them to take you on the journey down to their depths of their soul, and they'll take you with them, and they'll answer their own questions, and you're no longer the enemy. You're a guide.
What I find interesting is that so the perspective that you're coming from, you came from a lot of trauma. What we're seeing now is a lot of people who aren't coming from trauma, adopting trauma. I would say uh, catastrophizing their lives. So people who come from normal, loving families, but something somewhere is fishing for them, is looking for that one thing that they can find to say, you belong with us. I know that one of the big things is GSAs, gay straight alliances, the clubs that's at the schools. Okay, when you walk in and they've got all sorts of bling, so you get pins, you get stickers, you're part of the cool kids. You might get to you know not do the Pledge of Allegiance and walk down the halls instead in solidarity. But they're looking for kids who haven't been traumatized, and they're pulling them in. So so I guess going back to your interviewing, okay, somebody like you interview and you find out my uncle has been molesting me for a really, really long time. Okay, we see the issue here. But our kids, our upper middle class kids, and that doesn't, class doesn't have necessarily anything to do with who gets abused and who doesn't. But I'm in Utah. I'm in LDS Mormon culture. Okay. And and people are relatively affluent here. And we have a huge, huge amount. And what's I think different here is, and maybe it's there too, but I call it, and it's not the kindest term ever, but you said you're an agitator. I call it munch house and mommies. Um, moms who want to be relevant. They want to be just as relevant as their kid by making sure that they're a parent of a trans kid. Why is that happening? Do you think?
So to go into your point about where it doesn't have to be as obvious as mine. Trauma could even be being neglected emotionally, mentally. It doesn't mean you could have all the riches and wealth in the world, but trauma shows in different ways. It doesn't have to be as violent as mine, but it still creates this same disconnection. So that's why I know that it upsets people when I oversimplify, where I'm like, if it's happening in your family, there's something going on. It's a symptom, not a cause. So there's a symptom in your family. There's something going on. So even if you perceive your family to be normal, there's still things going on that are not allowing your kid to talk to you. Even just the fact of in school, um, like even with the kids that want like all the banners, the pins, the everything, where it's like, I need to feel accepted. I need to feel like you're part of something. But why do you feel like you're not a part of something where you're trying to be a part of something so aggressively? That's what I'm saying. It's like it's having to go back and do that.
Mhm.
But uh, so that's why I say it's like I know people don't want to hear that, and it's very uncomfortable because everyone wants to feel like, hey, home isn't like we're not molesting our kid, we're not screaming at them every night, and it's like, but in some way they don't feel safe, some way they don't feel connected to you, and it's like, and some families they're not very emotional, or they're not very emotions are hard, or emotions are too big, and minimize that, control that, lock that up, and it's like that causes trauma. That causes disconnection because now they don't feel safe to feel anything. So they're going to go find other people safe with. So that's where I talk
And
about
I
it's
think
like,
that's
it's really dealing with yourself.
and I think that's a big difference between, um, be feeling trauma and being disconnected. Those could be 2 different things. You can be disconnected in a perfectly loving family who hands their child a tablet and earbuds and checks out. The kids in their rooms staring at things, looking at YouTube videos, whatever, even though, again, there's nothing that you would say, there is no abuse. You're comfortable, you're all of these things, but if your kid can't connect with you, they can go down these certain roads. So tell me, now that
I
you
feel like
are
they're
an
one and the
advocate.
same.
Okay, go ahead, expand on that, please.
Oh, sure.
Um,
So
yeah,
disconnection and trauma, I feel, are basically like best friends. You can't have one without the other. Um,
okay.
there's no, you wouldn't connect it if you didn't have trauma, because if there was no trauma, there was action. So that means that kids, particularly speaking about kids, they would feel safe to talk. They would feel that there is an environment that they could come to you, they could ask questions. They don't feel like they're neglected or thrown off to the side to where they have to go find people to feel connected to because they already feel connected. If the need is already met, they're not going to go find it,
Okay.
in my
Okay.
opinion.
So normally when I think of trauma, I think of the ACEs scale, the adverse childhood effects. And when I think of that, I do think of more extreme trauma. And when I think of kids, I mean, even like little kids, you see them in the store and they've got their tablets and they're like, 2 years old, and they aren't thinking about anything else except the next game. And a lot of games, like a lot of cartoons, like PBS cartoons, have things like let's go watch the pride parade, and let's watch, and they normalize, like, not chest finders, but actually reducing, cutting off the breasts and having the little marks left over, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? So
Yes,
those are
I have
kind of things that a parent
seen
might
that stuff.
go, yeah, where a parent might go, I am I'm not traumatizing my kid. I'm empowering them. I am helping them be enlightened. And so they would feel differently about it, because there's I know I used to think, I'm choosing PBS. I could be choosing Cartoon Network, but I'm choosing PBS because I'm such a responsible parent. And that's when it's like, okay,
But, you know, that
nothing's
kind of falls on the adult, you know?
yes. Yes. So tell me, um the adults make me think of the Munch House and mommies, and sometimes those people can be the most aggressive towards the detrans community. Um, have you gotten any attack or pushback for being an outspoken detran detransitioner?
So I always tell people too, where, you know, if the kiddo's not sick, the parents are. And if the parents, and I know there are parents who get bullied to that, to where they're like, would you rather have a trans kid or a dead kid? I understand they
Right.
go through that process, which is very sickening. Um, but I have experienced recently, since my video started to kind of got set on fire. I've been experiencing like some of the people who don't like what I have to say, but again, I understand to a degree their ignorance. So at times I just respond to them, just be like, hey, it seems like you're triggered. So that's a good place to start from. You know, so instead of being angry with them, I try to help them realize the conversation they're having with themselves. Be like, you obviously don't like what I have to say, and there's a reason for that. So go digging, figure out why it bothers you, why what I say doesn't align with you. You know, and it's like, and explore that instead of being afraid of it.
That is so much more gracious than so much of what we see online in any
I
direction.
appreciate I'm not spicy. You know, I had one gentleman that attacking me constantly and told me that I wanted like trans kids dead and like basically was really pushing that kids should be trans. And I told him, and again, like I can't be spicy. And after being enough was enough with him, and I was like, you know what? I don't know why you're so focused on XYZ other than the harm that's being done on children. I was like, it makes me just think that you're the type of individual that has to go and tell your neighbors who you are before you move in that neighborhood. And without even a second thought, he blocked me. And I was like, it must have been correct.
Sounds about right. Yeah, I saw Joy Reid today post something about how Jingle Bells was racist, so I sang my own version because I was just like, I'm so tired of it. I'm just so like, ah, and they can say, you're triggered, and it's like, well, I'm gonna push back now. I'm a little bit done being
Right.
quiet about issues.
You're
So
like, there's a difference between triggered and annoyed. Like, I'm
yes,
annoyed.
there's that. There's
Yeah.
very much that. So tell me what you do as an advocate today.
So I kind of grew into this role, and Travis and Aaron have just amazing wars. So it just happens where they'd be like, I have an event. Would you be willing to come here? And I'm like, absolutely. And then I'm there and they're like, we're doing this podcast. Like, would you be willing to show up on here? Absolutely. There's this radio show. Would you like? And so it just kind of like where they find these opportunities and they see if I'm willing and able and comfortable to participate in it. And I'm always game for it. Like I've been fighting my whole life. So I'm not afraid of battles. I'm not afraid of wars. I'm not afraid of conflict. You know, so a lot of detransitioners I try to reach out to and ask them to speak up. A lot I understand their fear. I understand their fear, but it goes to that whole concept of like these kids need you and you ignoring this, eventually it's gonna circle back around and there's gonna be no one else around to save you. It's like so
Yeah.
use it. Like there's a reason why you went through this. You were assigned this role and it's time to be the elder. It's time to stand up and it's time to take that courage, 'cause you had to have courage to go through this process. You had to have bravery and courage to survive the process. So if that's the case, then you need to stand up and speak for these little ones. If not for you, for them. They don't deserve this. So I try to out, but they're fearful, and I understand. But basically Travis and Aaron, Protect Kids Colorado, they've basically been creating these situations where I'm able to go, and I tried to tell them, I was like, "You guys don't even realize how healing that is even for me, to be able to go and talk to people about the damage and harm that was done to me, trying to, prevent this from happening to other people." They're like shamans to me, they're healers to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and Erin's story, she got involved because and I'm going to interview her, but she got involved because of, her daughter was being immediately, like, instantly, socially transitioned in school. So tell me the situation in Colorado. How when do they start introducing this stuff to kids? Like, do you know what kind of
So
age?
I have no children of my own. It's hard to speak on this, but I know that
Okay.
like Gays Against Groomers, they try very hard to keep bill that seems very inappropriate away from our kids. And you could look on Gays Against Groomers, and you could see some of the things that they put into schools they think are appropriate for children, uh, which I'm not sure would be appropriate to talk about here. Graphic and that disgusting. Um, and from the laws, one of the laws we're trying to fight was HB 13. I think it was 1325 or 2513. Forgive me, my brain is mixing them up. But it basically
Mm-mm.
didn't allow us to intervene on a child's behalf, basically. So they could be socially transitioned at school because here in Colorado, I'm not sure about other states, but here in Colorado, if you're under 12, you don't really have to share any kind of information with your parents about your medical things. So kids can literally probably get started, on testosterone without their parents even knowing, or even having their permission. And then if the parent was to then jump in to be like, whoa, 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 we're not doing this, we're not being a part of this, at that point in time, then the bill then covers that aspect of abuse. If you dead name, if you misgender your kid, that's now considered coercive control. It's abuse. You've also created a hate crime. So enjoy your 4 days in jail and losing your child and whatever child you have in your care, because now you're seen as this this hate
Abusive.
hate
Yeah.
mongering abusive parent.
Wow.
So I try
And
to fight against that, and I try to speak with them, and even at the Senate, they did a real shisty move. They knew that we had a different approach, an approach that probably could have been impactful. So they pulled this thing called Rule 16, which means that they could basically go without any kind of testimony and just go straight to voting. So they removed me from the process where I couldn't even talk the second time to them and stress to them about how this is not the way that we should be going. This is not the direction Colorado should be going.
yeah, there's definitely an agenda. How much of it do you think has to do with financial incentives? Is that the goal
I
here?
think
Is
that's
it
a
financial incentives? Is it ideology? Or is it both?
I think both. I think they're getting the bonus of having us pay to be sterilized and mutilated, uh, broken, but I feel that, it's an ideology meant to crumble everything from the inside. In any society where, usually children are the first ones to be attacked, and I don't understand why this is not seen as the violence against children that it really is. Like most people want to say, like, no, we're being compassionate, like we're trying to let these little ones be who they are. It's like, but they're little ones that don't know anything. They know nothing
Right.
of the world. If they were, they would be out there working, but they're not. They would be out driving, drinking, buying cigarettes, walking into adult stores, doing adult things, but they don't do that. And there's a
Right.
reason for that.
Well, the thing that I've noticed, I mean, I think it's impossible to ignore that so much of the violence is coming from kids who are on this track. And that has been I've noticed that I've just been like, well, like you said earlier, they target the neurodivergent and they target it seems to me that they target trans kids towards activism, and that is, uh, um that's horrifying to me, that it is this constant sort of, if people don't like you, they're literally your enemies, and if they don't support you in any way, they're actually causing you harm, and if they're causing you harm, even internally, that's violence, and if it's violence, you have no alternative except to protect yourself. And
Yeah, it's very culty.
yeah, really it is. I wanted to
Mhm.
show a few, things here that make it relevant to Utah. So one is, this is from Representative Carrie Ann Lisenby, in Utah, and it says, "I'm grateful do no harm's careful and methodical analysis of recent, I can't see the word, conducted by the Drug Regimen Review Center at the University of Utah. The U's shockingly uncritical review asserts that puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are safe and effective." Never heard that before, right? So,
Right.
that they are safe and effective amid a sea of weak evidence, data extraction by a single reviewer rather than at least two, and conclusions based primarily on narrative summaries rather on quantitative synthesis, all despite reaching conflicting findings from well established systematic reviews available prior. So they were saying that these reviews, these studies have asserted that things are safe and effective despite the fact that there is evidence that they are not. And we pay for these in our schools. So we're being used and manipulated in multiple different ways. Let me just pull up a few more pictures here. This is debunking the Utah Department of Health and Human Services defense of pediatric medical transition. You guys, this is Utah. This is supposedly the safest of all, this is the religious state. And we have experts telling us it's safe to transition our kids medically. You need to hear that medically, not just the social transition, which does a lot of harm in itself, but medically transitioning our kids. And we're told it's safe. So don't ask questions because smart people don't ask questions. So, and here's the conclusion. Oh, that's going to be a little hard for me to read. Um, can you see it? To read it? It's a little hard for me. The Utah report,
Oh, it's okay, it's really hard to
yeah,
see.
it's very small. Anyways, you can see this all on Do No Harm. And I think it's really important that you do look it up. I think it's really important that you go and stop blindly trusting. Stop allowing yourselves to go, oh, under the name of kindness, I'm not going to protect my own children. Stop saying,
Right.
"Oh, under the name of kindness, I'm not going to speak up at church to the kids that I teach," because somebody has to protect these kids. And I think it's amazing that you're doing it without having kids of your own. And it's extremely brave. You may say that
I appreciate it.
there's nothing, that you've been through a lot, but let's be real. To speak against the narrative today is quite frankly deadly.
Oh, I'm okay with that. They have no idea where I've been.
I mean,
It's hard to scare someone when I was constantly playing with that, so it's okay, and if it's something to die for, that would be the best thing to die for our future.
and those, like, when I just saw you talk, that's why I was like, I need to talk to her because those are the voices I wanna highlight. I wanna talk to the brave people because when we highlight brave voices, we give other people permission to be brave. We need heroes, and you are one.
And you're one of them.
So, I mean, it's really I love what you said towards the beginning about you were given this all everything that you went through, you were given so that you could stand up. I know you said you're not religious, but so that you could stand up for such a time as this. That's the thing. We are at this place where you cannot sit on the fence because targeting our children
No,
is
not
real.
anymore.
No,
And,
no.
even for the
So,
articles that you brought up, I would encourage people to go speak or to look up Erin Friday, and she has done amazing research on this. Travis Morrell, he speaks, specifically on gender blockers and or on, gender blockers, on puberty blockers and how they're actually not effective and, how it could eat the brain of little boys. It can mess up the endocrine systems of these children forever. And not only that, but especially for little boys. So there's a side effect of taking this puberty blocker because, mind you, these puberty blockers are the same things that they give sex offenders in prison to chemically castrate them.
yep.
So I don't understand how you're paying anything when when you're doing basically chemical castration on these children. You reason with the child, and I remember at this talk on November 20th, and I was listening, and she had such a beautiful point where it's like, how do you reason with an 8-year-old and you tell an 8-year-old, like, you take these puberty blockers to cause this process, but just know you'll never have an orgasm ever in your whole entire life. You'll never be able to connect with your partner. How do you tell about adult problems? They don't get it.
Right.
These things are very dangerous. She even shows on the website for these puberty blockers where you could go down to disclaimer and it basically refutes everything they just tried telling you, that it's safe,
And
that
this
it's
website,
cool,
what is
and
it?
then you go into their disclaimer. Give me, I don't have it offhand. I know that's
Okay.
why I want people to look up Erin
Okay.
Friday. She has
Aaron
all the
Friday, and it's
videos.
and it mm, yeah. Okay. And do you think it's do no harm or you think it's something different? I'm just gonna type in do no harm.
And even
That's
if they
okay.
look up and even the event that we had where we are speaking, and it was for Protect Kids Colorado, and it was for this initiative, and it was on November 20th, and it was one of the speeches I did. So you can even look up my name on YouTube and go find that speech, or I could like send it to you so you could give it to your followers, and you could watch what
Yeah,
she talks about, and she puts it all out there in plain standing.
fantastic. Yeah, we need to follow each other and make each other's platforms get larger, not because anybody's trying to be a celebrity, because that's not the goal here. The goal is
Mm,
to be the experts, to drown out the liars. Sorry, but
right.
that's the truth. We need to drown out the lies because, and I say this often, I had a young woman who said, "Us kids know something is wrong. When are the adults going to stand up for us?" That's why we do what we do.
That's
And
heavy.
so we need you. It was. It was really heavy. It was a young woman in a grocery store who I was talking to while she was bagging up my stuff. And
Wow.
I specifically speak a lot about the racial divide and all of that garbage. And she was just like, as kids know that the more we hear about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the more divided we are. So when? When? So
Now
thank you.
it's
So
now.
yeah, it's it was it was 10 years ago, but just because and just like your story, it doesn't matter. You can have guilt for however you treated your family, but every day you get a chance to do the right thing. Every day you get a chance to heal from people and to give people the benefit of the doubt and to embrace the good people in your life and really to do the right thing. And so I'm so grateful that you are doing the right thing, and I'm so thankful that you said yes with less than 24 hours to come on and talk to me. I really appreciate it. So thank you
It
so
was my
much. Now,
honor.
where Where can people follow you?
So I'm
Where
on X. It's Evan De La Cruz, but the DE, the E is a three. So it's
Okay.
just my old name. But I'm on
Okay.
X and I'm also on Facebook, and it's Antoinette De La Cruz Professional. That's my professional page for the advocacy work that I do specifically. I don't accept on my personal side, so that's how you'll know you're at the wrong place. So, um,
Okay.
but
Perfect.
also, one of the biggest things I wanted to stress, as you mentioned, we're under a time constraint right now of trying to raise the funds and get the signatures necessary to be able to put that on our ballot for 2026 to protect minors from sex change surgeries. At Kids Colorado, anybody could donate. And even if it's a fact, if Colorado could be the tip of the spear, so to speak, to get this rolling for the rest of the country, and us help push us across that finish line so we can then start to propel this new energy forward, which is stand for our children. We were on sensibility, reading, and critical thinking.
I love it. Thank you so much. And yeah, I will put that out. If you'll send me a link directly to the how to donate, that would be wonderful. And I'll put that out, and I'll also put it on our Instagram and just try to get people to, it's a perfect thing. And right now is the giving season. So can't think of more important work. So thank you so
I'm
much. I
most
really
grateful.
appreciate having you. Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for having me. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.